You're going to be rewarded, like I said, with 2 giveaways. We've got one at about 2. Ah, see, it's already fixed. He's so good at technical stuff. If only he were good at Duel Champions.
Oh.
If I'm gonna join you guys.
Oh, they heard that? Even better.
No, they didn't hear that.
Okay. Yeah, he was giving me some profanity in the background,
I
in
don't
a
know what
very
you're talking
loving
about.
way. Kinetic is my favorite 1200 player.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Still waiting on visual, guys. Once it comes back up, we're gonna start casting the game. But like I said, there's a giveaway at 2 and a giveaway at 4. The prize is gonna be a promo code, and that's gonna give you access to some packs. I believe it is a 5 Towers and a Forgotten Wars pack. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's one of each.
It's one of each. You're gonna have to be a follower. You're gonna have to say something interesting on the stream to enter the contest. You can't just sit there and hope we pick you. But if you comment and if you follow us, you will be entered automatically, and Kinetic will completely randomly do the drawing, and maybe you'll win something cool. Anyway, we're back online, finally, and the matchup that we're going to watch is, drumroll, Tyrion.
Drum. I don't know how to do that on command.
Alright, no drumroll. We're watching Cassandra and Sandalphon Game 2. We already watched Game 1 between these guys. Game 1, despite some, we'll call them suboptimal plays from the Sandalphon players, Sandalphon did win that game. So this, I believe, is Game 2, unless we skipped ahead to a Game 3. I don't even know if there is a Game 3. And yeah, knowing what we saw in Game 1, knowing the matchup, who do you like?
It's still hard for me to say. I'd still have to lean towards Cassandra. I think there's a slight edge to Cassandra in the matchup. I think we actually saw that throughout most of the game last time, even though Cassandra didn't end up winning. There's just so many more tools there, but it does require drawing them at the right time. We saw there was an unfortunate turn where he had his choice to either Prison or Cosmic Rewards, but in that exact turn, they happened to not be that useful to him. So perhaps Sandalphon is a little bit more forgiving in that instance, but again, this could easily go either way.
Yeah, I mean, to put it nicely, the Sandalphon deck was certainly pretty forgiving last game, given what we saw. Interesting hand here for Sandalphon this time. He's got double Magic Paddler, which of course is going to get Song of the Lost and Strength of the Sea respectively, if he plays those before he draws those cards, and if they don't get discarded to realignment or whatever. So once again, it's going to be Sandalphon off to the races. Going to get his opponent down to 16 before he takes a single point of damage. I don't love any play that he has here. I think he should move the Radiant Glory up to the top and then play 2 guys. Not sure what the 2 guys are. I probably would play just a Magic Peddler in the way and soak up 2 damage. I think that's fine. He can't possibly be thinking about attacking here. He's got to move it. It's just a matter of where he's going to move it. And then I guess he could throw like a Griffin or something in the way to block both creatures instead of one. But I don't think that's worthwhile. I personally would just fodder off a Magic Peddler and be off to the races.
Yeah, and what would you actually fetch with your Magic Peddler right now? Because obviously he has 2 choices, Strength of the Sea or Song of the Lost. I think it's a little bit riskier to get Song of the Lost, but what would you go for?
Well, he didn't play Magic Peddler at all, but assuming that he did, I would have dug up Song of the Lost, because if I had to discard one of the 2 cards, I would rather discard that one, in my opinion. I think Strength of the Sea is the stronger card in the matchup. I think both the Fortune Ward and, of course, the Boost are both pretty relevant, though we haven't seen any bridges from Cassandra. I mean, we have seen other cards, though. We've seen, like, Altar of Asha, which, if they're playing with sideboards here, I think I personally would have taken that card out. I think knowing that I'm playing against a deck that absolutely has Strength of the Sea and that will never board Strength of the Sea out, I think Altar is pretty awful just to sack a guy and recur one of your dudes. I don't think that's at all worth the spot. That's one thing that we should talk about here, because we haven't actually, this is our first game together in a post-sideboard game, and that changes a lot. He kept the Altar in, which I thoroughly disagree with. But assuming that they both sideboarded, what kind of cards do you think should have been brought in this matchup from either side?
You know, this is an interesting question. I think that Crusader Marksman would be an interesting call for Bond to King. He's already up at 4 might for treasurers. I think it actually fits in nicely in that back row and definitely works quite well against all of these frontline creatures of the aggro deck that Sandy is playing. So that's one sort of interesting card that I like to see in Haven matchups in particular, especially ones that use Holy Praetorian, which we now see in the hand of Izachiel now. But maybe just 2 Crusader Marksmen would be good. Yeah, definitely agree that Altar of Asha, although it could be used to revive perhaps a Soothsayer if you need one to get another fortune out or something, which actually doesn't make any sense now that I think about it, because you would be pulling Altar of Asha. But yeah, I don't see any place for it really. But
it looks to me like Sandalphon is ahead again. I mean, that's not to say that he's going to win. I mean, his opponent can just play Devotion, and all of a sudden we're playing an even game again. But right now, the board definitely favoring Sandalphon. And Devotion is already in hand for Cassandra, however. I don't love some of the cards. He's got that Altar in hand like we talked about, and I don't see that being helpful here. And Pillage is one of those cards that doesn't benefit you when you're already behind on the board. So I don't see an amazing turn here for Cassandra no matter what he does. I mean, he's not getting crushed just yet, but he doesn't really have anything in his hand that impacts the board, which is what he needs the most, because right now he's just flat out behind on guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, his hand is now entirely Pillage plus all 3 of his unique fortunes. So, I mean, at least Imperial Devotion is getting great value for him here, but I mean, he can now pillage, and I guess getting an altar out before Strength of the Sea comes out is a good thing.
That's really the best use of that card that he's going to get. Like I said, I wouldn't have even brought it in, and I doubt he's even thinking about that right now. I think had his opponent played Strength of the Sea first, and then he was stuck with Altar in hand, it would click with him, but he's going to manage to get away from it here. It's been confirmed this is, in fact, Game 2 and a best 2 out of 3. I don't know if it's a Game 3 or not. Even if I did know, I wouldn't tell you guys, because that would ruin the outcome of this game. But if the Sandalphon player manages to drop this game to Cassandra, we will be moving to a 3rd game, and then we'll go from there. Right now, the Altar is going to pick off the Holy Praetorian. Wow, he's really worried about that guy. I guess it makes sense, not only because it's a good utility creature, but because it also allows him to attack for 5. And ironically, since Sandalphon was so far ahead, it's now Cassandra way ahead on life, 20-10.
Yeah, way ahead on life, not necessarily super far ahead on the board in general. It's still fairly even, but that Crusader Treasurer is definitely going to be having some sort of impact. But Bonta King relying on what he draws out of his deck now, while Izachiel still has a considerable amount of cards in his hand. But we know Bonta King has Prison. A pillage with a prison is definitely going to be pretty useful for him.
Despite all those cards, Sandalphon is, unless he uses the unique ability, which is not the worst choice here, he could discard Homebound Winds to play 2 guys here instead of 1. But if he does not opt to do that, then he's only going to get to play 1 card this turn. He is going to discard, I think it's going to be Homebound Winds. I mean, he could discard a Peddler too, I guess, but Homebound Winds is the card that I personally would get rid of here. He's rethinking it. Oop, take 2. Now he's rethinking it again. Hopefully he's not under too much pressure from the clock like he was in the previous game, in which we saw that disastrous misplay. And he's going to disagree with me. He's going to discard Magic Peddler. That's fine, so it gives him 5 resources. Here comes a Holy Praetorian. I think that is a fine choice. We'll see what the follow-up play is. I'm not sure that's necessarily where I would have put it. I think I would have put it in the top lane. And then, yeah, I guess it depends on the follow-up. I think I personally would have put the Praetorian in the top lane and then lightning bolted something, either the Captain or the Glory. As it stands, I think he's going to take more damage than he needs to here, and this prison is actually going to be pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, I agree with that. Praetorian in the top row will obviously has the potential to stop more damage than just blocking the Treasurer. And after prison, he's going to not have any options. Obviously, he can discard a card again. But, yeah, Bonta King getting that damage in. I'm guessing he's going to go for the damage. But then again, he does have to keep in mind that if a week of training comes up, that's going to add 4 more damage to the board of Izuchiel as well, so that's definitely something to consider.
He's not going to have resources.
Right, if he were to discard a card.
Yeah. I see playing the Griffin below the captain, attacking with both guys on the top, and playing the prison. I mean, I like the Sandalphon position from there. That's not the Cassandra position, rather. That's not to say that Sandalphon wouldn't have outs, but I think that it's pretty bad. I think it favors Cassandra pretty heavily from that point. He would knock his opponent all the way down to 5. They'd be even at best on board, and the important thing is that his opponent wouldn't have resources.
Yeah, instead, moving those guys to the bottom row, playing the prison, and blocking with the Loyal Griffin instead. I think that's slightly riskier, although, I mean, when you play prison, then you know that the risk is going to be very small on the next turn anyways, so not a huge deal there. But yeah, it was Sandy down to 6 health. Can deal 5 damage back to Cassandra now, but can't do anything else.
Well, he's got access to Wombo combo now. He can't do it this turn because of prison, but he's got Ice Splinters, and he's also got Magic Peddler here. The play that he might have to discard Homebound Winds, play the Magic Peddler, search for Song of the Lost, and then next turn go for the Song of the Lost Ice Splinters combo. So I think that's the thing to do. I think he has to just survive this turn. If his opponent has a pillage, he loses anyway, so he can't play around that. So I think you just make the most conservative play possible, survive the turn, Wombo combo your opponent on the next turn, and proceed to win from there.
Yep, I definitely agree. With 7 resources next turn, he will be able to use the combos, so he definitely has to play the Magic Peddler now and make sure he's actually able to Wombo combo next turn. Clear the board. Bonta King has to know that should be happening.
I don't love that movement, though. I think I would have moved the Wolf Captain. I would have either attacked or moved the Wolf Captain down. I would put the Magic Peddler where he put the Wolf Captain. I do not like moving it in that way whatsoever. Pitches Lightning Strike as opposed to Homebound Winds. I'm not sure that it matters, but it's all the same. He's going to... It might not be all the same. That might have been a mistake. But nonetheless, he is going to play the Peddler. He is going to play the Song of the Lost. We see that his opponent does not have a pillage. Instead, he just has 2 Griffins. Now, granted, he's going to have some good attacks here. He can opt to pick off the Wolf Captain if he so chooses. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. He's deciding where to put the Griffin. Yep, he is going to pick off the opposing Wolf Captain. Seems fine. Retribution leaves his Wolf Captain with just 1 health, so it's at the mercy of the Crusader. And here comes some pretty good attacks for Cassandra. However, he's got to suspect that even if his opponent doesn't necessarily have Ice Splinters in hand, he has to know that that's what his opponent is playing for. He's clearly trying to get him with a Wombo combo. So it's just a matter of can he do it. Unfortunately, we know that there's nothing in the hand of Cassandra that's going to prevent the Wombo combo, and there's going to be a big board wipe on the following turn. Now, Cassandra here is not necessarily dead. Taking very little damage, actually, post-Wombo combo. Still going to be at 6, but the bigger issue is going to be that he has no cards whatsoever in hand, and I don't know what Cassandra's going to be able to draw to get out of this game after his entire board is wiped.
Yeah. And going back to discarding Lightning Strike for Homebound Winds, maybe he was thinking that he just needs guaranteed single-target removals for regardless of health just to get finishing damage through. Or maybe he just really loves Homebound Winds for some reason, but...
Well, he can't Wombo combo now. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, with Mana Storm in play. He's going to have to play another blocker to be safe.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Mana Storm is going to... Ice Splinters, people don't even think of it because it's like not even a card, but it is, in fact, very technically a spell. And he has to play Ice Splinters before Song of the Lost in order for the combo to work. And if he did that, the Ice Splinters would cost him 4, leaving him with 3, rendering him unable to go with Song of the Lost. Now, granted, he could discard to Sandalphon Unique ability to get 2 resources, but then he wouldn't be able to up his magic like he did this turn, so he wouldn't be able to play the Song of the Lost. So no matter what, there wasn't any way to do it that turn. That event actually really, really saved Cassandra. And Cassandra's now going to have an extra turn that he otherwise would not have had. And that could make all the difference. Cassandra, very, very capable of making big plays here. At very least, the board for Sandalphon is going to be worse. And it's certainly getting weaker right now. Soothsayer is a great draw there. Or is it useless? I'm trying to think. He went through...
He's already used all three, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, never mind. That's a useless draw then. My bad. It's a blocker. He's going to feel bridge. What does that do? He could bridge... He could move his Griffins and bridge two guys. He could bridge the Glory. Do you see any great play for bridge here?
No. Bridging the two guys is not a good play at all. That actually gives health back to the Watchman and lets him play Peddler again for Strength of the Sea. Otherwise, obviously, he has to deal with some of the damage coming in, so his only play might be the bottom row to take out the 3 damage from... the Radiant Glory. I'm not really sure. He could also move a Griffin down to block and maybe hold on to the bridge.
Yeah, maybe. Oh boy, this one's tough. This is the close one.
Yeah, and interesting to note, there's another Mana Storm in play again.
Yeah.
So, not that he won't be able to cast Wombo Combo next turn, but will take more of his resources. He'll be taking 1 damage. And again, he doesn't have enough damage on the board to actually kill Cassandra afterwards, so that 1 damage might actually be important.
He might flip a second Mana Storm. That's entirely possible.
Yeah, there's always that potential too. But yeah, as it is right now, Bond King did not want to see either of those 2 cards. Of all the cards in his deck, those are 2 very useless cards right now.
Yeah, they were not exciting. The event that's turned over is not another Mana Storm. It is instead Blind Arbiters, which, yeah, that does not do much of anything here. It's just going to be a Wombo Combo turn. It's going to cost Sandalphon 1 life, which could matter. But I think it is well worth being able to Wombo. He might not go for it. He might be uber conservative and milk it for everything that it's worth. He could instead up his might and simply play 2 creatures this turn and try to absolutely blow his opponent out. I think I might do that. I think I might be conservative. I think I might attack with the Glory on the bottom, play the Treasurer on the bottom, and then just simply play the other Glory elsewhere. I don't think that's that bad.
Yep, I would agree with that play. 2 creatures here makes most sense. Killing off these creatures while... wait, is he discarding a card for extra resources? Okay, so he wants to play Wombo Combo and Radiant Glory, but he has Mana Storm in play, so he's not actually able to do that. He's going to be 2 resources short now. But I think that was his original intent, was to discard the Crusader Treasure to get 2 more resources to play the Glory in hand, but unfortunately that was not possible.
Yeah, I don't know if it was nerves getting the better of him or what. I think that might have been a premature Wombo Combo. I mean, it obviously wasn't bad. It didn't hurt anything. It's always good to wipe your opponent's board, but I don't feel that he needed to do it right then and there. I feel that he maybe, like I said, maybe got a little bit nervous or whatever, and just felt the need to do it under the pressure. But I think it might have been better in hindsight to play the guys instead.
Yeah, and he also didn't need to discard a Treasurer either. Not that the Treasurer in itself is the best creature on the board for him, but it is a 6 health creature. It's a creature in general, and it's also a card in his hand. So now he's down to 1 card in hand, and that's going to severely limit his options based on what Bond King is able to do here.
Well, Campfire there, not particularly useful given the 2 events in play. He doesn't gain a single resource from it, and it's going to count towards his spell for the turn for Blind Arbiters, which doesn't do anything at all. It does Cantrip, which he might need to do here because his hand is really underwhelming. But the only card that actually matters in his hand is that Crusader. The bridge, I guess, could randomly bounce something, which, I mean, that's more than nothing, but not by much. Is he just going to play the Soothsayer here? That seems so bad. Yeah, he's just going to play it for absolutely nothing whatsoever. I think I like playing Campfire better, because what if the spell you draw is something that actually does something other than Soothsayer? The hand for Sandalphon much better. Two very relevant Radiant Glories and that homebound wins. So yeah, I mean it's not over, but Sandalphon is in a good position to win this game as well. And if he does manage to win that game, it'll be a 2-0 series victory for him.
And again, Week of Tax is coming into play, but I do agree that Campfire should be played just to try to open up more options. But sense that he would play a Nail to block the top row just in case, and then bridge the bottom row perhaps. Drawing a card, he gets a Watchman, so he could actually block the top row with a Watchman.
I think he should Campfire first. There's no reason not to. Like, sure, he doesn't gain a resource, but who cares? There's no Blind Arbiters this turn. Why not just see another card?
Yeah, I agree. He needs to hopefully draw into something that can help him win this game right now, instead of just trying to hang on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see what he's waiting for. I don't see it mattering if in a future turn he has one additional resource, nor do I think he has the time to even wait for that. I think you Campfire right now, see your options, go from there. Assuming he draws, River of Gems or something useless, I think he goes Angel in the top, bounce the Glory, and I don't know if you probably move the Soothsayer. I think blocking the Crusader that doesn't even have power right now is not that important, and if he does flip a Week of Training, who cares? 1 damage, not super relevant right now. I really don't get why he's not going for Campfire. He's really in the tank. He's thinking about this turn long and hard. If you're gonna Campfire, you do it first, but for whatever reason, he is intent on holding that card. And he makes a very, very interesting play here. Wow, how do you feel about this turn? That was not at all what I was expecting.
I mean, it's the aggressive play. He puts his Nail in a location where anything that now tries to block it will die, unless Ezechiel is able to draw a Crusader Treasurer. That's the only thing that could actually withstand the initial Ice Splinters plus a Nail damage. But yeah, instead, there is the potential for 5 damage right now. Ezechiel's going to have to draw and see if he can draw another POW or something. But yeah, with Week of Training and a POW in hand that is 5 damage, that would bring Cassandra down to 1, which, being 1 health away from killing someone, is about as pointless as being 6 health away from killing someone, because it's still not over and you could still lose on the very next turn.
If I'm Sandalphon, the first thing I would do here is draw a card. No matter what it is, even if it's something useless, he could draw 3 Glories this turn after drawing that card. So that's what I would do for sure. He's thinking about activating Weak. He does activate Weak. I personally do not agree with that. 4 is not any more relevant than anything else. 4 and 5 are pretty much the same. 4 and 6 are pretty much the same, because all the damage from Sandalphon that he has in his hand, it's all 3 damage. So I personally don't feel the need to have made that play. I get that he wants to kill the Angel, and does leave him in a decent board position, but there is a potential risk to this as well. There's definitely going to be a Campfire this turn. I think it should have happened before, but there's absolutely no reason in hell not to do it now. He's going to draw an additional card after Campfiring, and unfortunately his hand is probably not what he needs right now. He's got a useless Tithe Collector, he's got a very useless River of Gems. Vanguard's fine, but it's not exactly the best blocker. And then he's got the Treasurer, which is probably going to go down bottom to, despite taking 2 damage based from the Ice Splinters, it's still going to be able to hold off that Glory, and that is very, very relevant here.
Yeah, that's actually going to make a pretty big difference. That was a good draw for him there, because it's the only creature that could actually make that trade in the bottom lane without dying. And being able to block that 3 damage to the bottom lane is extremely important, especially since we know another Week of Training is coming for Ezechiel. At least 1 Week of Training. There's 2 on the board right now for Banda King. Not that he should be interested in using those, other than the fact that he has extra resources, so why not? But he doesn't even elect to block the bottom row. Instead, he goes for the aggressive play.
Well, it makes it interesting. He correctly blocks all the rows other than the Ice Splinters row, and that prevents any devastating POW Deathseeker play here. So we'll see how Sandalphon wants to play this. He can attack and leave his opponent at 1, but
he actually wins. He wins. He play a POW to kill off the Tithe Collector, and then play Week of Training.
Week of Training.
So I think that was actually a mistake to not block that 3 damage.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just put the Vanguard in the other row as well. That works. I mean, there's a couple of ways that Cassandra could have stayed alive here, but as it stands, that is not what's going to be the case. Strength of the Sea coming down. I don't know if that's an insult to injury thing or what. There's a couple of different ways that Sandalphon could have won this game, but he opts to simply attack with the Glory, and that is going to end the series. It's going to be a 2-0 series win for our Sandalphon player. You pronounce it. Izachiel, that guy. Gonna take out Bontu King 2-0, and that is gonna move us right along to our next match, which is one of my personal favorite matchups. It's gonna be Kelthor against Demiria in a best 2 out of 3 series. Who do you like in the matchup, my friend?
I like Demiria. I mean, obviously everyone knows how good Kelthor is, and lately, thanks to people like JKK, there's been a lot of attention on Demiria as well, especially with recurring Forbidden Flames, and that's sort of been an item of discussion lately. I know that devs have said that they're going to try to fix recurring uniques, mostly due to Prison and Forbidden Flame being used over and over again. But in this particular matchup, Demiria, I think, has the upper hand if it gets to late game. If Kelthor does get a God Hand, he can just win outright, I think. But Demiria has Might of Nature and potential for better late game, but you can never count Kelthor out either because Stronghold creatures are just strong.
Well, guys, we're about to find out together. You're watching the Duel of Champions Team League, round of 64, presented by Kinetic 42. I'm Enlightened Owl, co-casting with Tyrion. And here is game 1 of the best 2 out of 3. Like I said, Kelthor on Demiria. Our players are, a little bit of lag. Ooh, that's a big name. Mally Drab on the right. Very, very good player. Huge, really good Inferno player in general. He was a huge component of Ignatius. He's got a couple of unconventional cards in his hand. It's kind of like he's kind of made a hybrid deck of Ignatius and Demiria. This is not the JKK9 version.
Not at all. This is a Slowpoke.
Yes, it is. And his opponent is Ben Billard, who... I don't know Ben Billard. Do you know Ben Billard?
Unfortunately, I don't. But, being at 1330 ELO does mean that you know what you're doing, though. So hopefully he puts up a good fight here. I mean, Mally Drab has to be the favorite in this matchup. Immediately, I sort of said that Demiria had an advantage because of Might of Nature, but this isn't even a deck that relies on that. This is a deck.
Probably not.
It's going to be relying on POW Death Seekers and Void Rays to deal all the damage here, and of course Tower and Altar of Destruction. All of these cards.
Kelthor has a couple of interesting cards in his hand both ways. He's got Firebolt, which is probably terrible in the matchup, and he's got Zephyra and Zephyra and Wartent, which are both probably really good in the matchup. I can't imagine Sacrificial Altar does a lot either. Unfortunately, Kelthor here not really getting the aggressive draw that he probably needs to win this match. He's playing everything one turn behind curve. He played Goblin Scout on 2 resources, playing Harpy on 3 resources. Might have been better had he gone Double Scout, or had he gone Harpy and then Brute, or something along those lines. But as it stands, I think he's not having an aggressive enough draw to really punish Mally Drab here. I'm going to go for Insect Swarm. I'm going to wipe out a guy, leave the other guy weak. That's totally fine. He's got the ability to activate Night of the Rising Moon here, and I really think he should take it. Wow, he's going to activate... I don't agree with that at all. I do not at all like going for celebrations here. I think the first thing he should have done is gone for Night of the Rising Moon. Wow, he doesn't do that at all. I think those are 2 pretty huge misplays. I think his hand is super underwhelming in a matchup that's already really, really bad for Kelthor. And I think he needed to draw cards there and dig himself to what he needed, but I think that was pretty bad. And I think I'd be confident enough to say 90% Mally Drab wins this game now. I already feel that he's that far ahead.
I think you have a valid point there. Obviously, Kelthor is very susceptible to any sort of fortunes. He doesn't have any way of dealing with those unless they're playing with Price of the Void, which, as far as I know, is extremely uncommon. But yeah, any creatures he plays are going to be subject to Forbidden Flame, Insect Swarm, Stone Shields, Altar of Shadows, Broken. The fact that there's an empty board already is a very bad thing. And with Chaos Seers in Malydrab's hand, that means that these unique spells that Kelthor has, not only are they pretty bad against the creatures of Malydrab, but they're also likely to be discarded in case he did need them. So definitely a very bad situation for him. But with POW, War Tents, I mean, Malydrab is sort of banking on the fact that he can take damage early, because as long as he gets to the late game, he'll be able to slowly poke away and establish enough of a defense that he'll be mostly untouchable. But with War Tent there and all these quick attack creatures, Malydrab has to be a little bit careful to make sure he doesn't just take too much damage.
With his long and thought-out revised tactics there, we got a very good look at the Malydrab deck. He's playing one copy of Tower of Oblivion. It's going to be probably his primary damage other than Altar of Destruction. He does not have Earth Grasp, which it seems fine. I mean, he has both Stone Shield and Altar of Shadows, which is going to prevent damage from him. And then he's got Earthquake and Insect Swarm. And then we also saw, I believe, 2 Armageddons, I believe we saw, as well as the full package of 4 Realignment, which is a very important card for his deck because he needs to recycle the cards that do damage. Here we see him digging for some cards via Knight of the Rising Moon. If he wants to, he can do that exact thing again, though he might be skeptical about taking damage here. I don't know why the War Tent was not placed under the guy that's already in play. This is interesting. He's going to follow up here by just... was that a mistake? Do you think he didn't realize? He goes for Forbidden Flame, not only just on one creature, but it doesn't even kill the creature. Why do you think he did that?
You know, he does have Singularities in hand. Elephants are hard to deal with. I'm not sure why he wouldn't just use that in a more efficient way, but maybe he's just so confident that he can get that back that he didn't really care, and he just wanted to bring the Elephant down to 1 health so it could die to something like an Earthquake or Insect Swarm or something. But
yeah, I mean, maybe he's trying to trick his opponent, like, for lack of a better term. Maybe he was trying to be like, hey, I use my Forbidden Flame, I don't have access to it anymore, throw a bunch of guys on the board, and then try to clear the board. But I mean, even if that was the play, which I don't necessarily agree with, I don't think he was expecting Zephyra, which is probably not the card he wanted to see here. That's going to cause him to take 4 damage out of nowhere. It has the extremely relevant Magic Resist, which, even if his opponent were to recur Forbidden Flame next turn, it's going to come nowhere close to killing the Zephyra. And finally, Kelthor is going to activate Knight of the Rising Moon here, going to pitch that useless Sacrificial Altar, probably a useless Firebolt as well. And yeah, going to draw a bunch of guys. That is pretty good. And all of a sudden, Kelthor is probably in better shape than he could be here. I don't see a great out to Zephyra. There is a bridge in hand, but that's not going to remove it. And we'll see how Malydrab wants to dig himself out of this. Stone Shield is certainly a good start, but it is a temporary solution to a permanent problem.
all right. And one thing you did mention earlier is that you saw 1 Tower of Oblivion in his deck. There's actually a 2nd Tower of Oblivion, which was in Malydrab's hand at the time. So he does have access to another one.
Okay.
But regardless, down to 1 HP, and Malydrab certainly did not predict this, I have a feeling.
According to our sideline reporter, Kinetic, who is 1240 and doesn't know what he's talking about, but he does have access to deck lists, and he says there's only 1 Tower of Oblivion. I'm not sure either way, but he does have access to the deck list, so I'm going to take his word for it. There easily could have been a little bit of confusion there, no big deal. As it stands, there is a Mass Rage in play, which we saw there are multiple copies, 3 or 4, of Void Wraith for Malydrab, which is one of the ways that he deals damage. But right now, dealing damage is not his concern. His opponent is at 16. He's not going to be able to burst his opponent down in 1 turn. Malydrab, on the other hand, is at 1. And that is not a healthy life total in a deck that has absolutely no way to get any life total, health, life points, whatever you want to call it. Has no way to get those things back. And yeah, he's going to need a pretty big board clear here. Forbidden Flame not going to do it. So he would need...
Yeah, I think he has to play an altar and stall for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Celebrations as well, try to dig his way out of this. He does in fact activate that, gets a Campfire, but his opponent has a lot of cards. He's going to have one big turn in which he goes altar, 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 tower, or something like that.
Yeah, certainly a troubling place for Maleidrab right now. He did not anticipate it all being down to 1 health right now, but again, that's sort of what I mentioned earlier, is this Kelthor, you never know when all this surprise damage is going to come out. And right now, Maleidrab just has to do everything he can to make sure these creatures either do not attack his hero, or attack into a Stone Shield, or just can't attack at all. Like, ideally, he wants to play Mass Rage and play the Void Rays so he can deal damage to Kelthor that way, but unfortunately with Zephyria in play, that becomes impossible.
One thing that I want to point out, remember this is game 1 of a best 2 out of 3 series, but they do play with sideboards like we already talked about. Now granted, not to hate on Ben Billard, because I don't know Ben Billard, he could be awesome, but I'm not sure that all 1,300 players would necessarily take advantage of the sideboarding option. But something to consider is that Price of the Void, even if he doesn't have it in his main deck, that very well could come in for the next game. And if Maleidrab opts to stay with Demiria, and he does have the right to switch decks if he wants to, but if Maleidrab stays with Demiria, I think he needs to worry very much about the possibility of the Price of the Void, getting rid of his altars, getting rid of his Stone Shields. And as we've seen, there have been many, many turns in this game where had the Stone Shield or the altar not been in play, Kelthor would have flat out won the game. So if this matchup favors Maleidrab pre-board, which I think it does, even though I don't love his position in this particular game, I don't know that assuming his opponent's sideboards correctly, that Demiria is favored post-board.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up here. And Maleidrab, I don't know what other decks he signed up with, but what was the sideboard restriction? How many cards could be in your sideboard?
Actually, we're still in the group stages, so you can swap your entire deck out. We're still under basically fall open rules, where you pick 2 heroes and you can have any type of deck. The sideboard restrictions won't go until deck lists are submitted for the top 16.
So that's even better. That means that he could switch to JKK Demiria. Kelthor could bring in Price of the Void. He could bring in 4 Price of the Void if he wants. He can switch however he pleases. So if he wanted to, he could say, hey, get rid of all my sacrificial altars and bring in 4 Price of the Void. No, I didn't sign up with that, but guess what? I'm going to beat your deck, Maleidrab. And yeah, I mean, knowing that that's a legal tactic, Maleidrab is absolutely going to have to be worried about playing this deck in game 2. I know that I would be concerned about it. And interesting plays here. He's not being an idiot. He's not trolling. What he's doing is he's getting cards out of his hand so he doesn't get blown out by Tower of Oblivion. He's trying to prevent that card from being out. He might even Lightning Strike his own guy here. I don't think that's awful. I could see Lightning Striking, say, the Harpy, or Lightning Striking the Scout, and then maybe replacing it with the Vulture Rider. Yeah, he's going to do exactly that. He's going to Lightning Strike. He might Lightning Strike again and just play one dude. I think that's totally fine. It doesn't really matter whether he has 5 guys on the board or whether he's got, 2 guys, 3 guys, whatever. He just has to have enough to where he doesn't get blown up by Insect Swarm because his opponent's at 1.
All right, he does get his Night of the Rising Moon event, which he's been waiting for. He has Armageddon in hand. He has a Magic Peddler. Maleidrab is going to be able to clear the board now.
A lot of damage in hand, too. Double Altar, double Wraith with the Mass Rage in hand, Altar in hand, Death Seeker in hand. Maleidrab can burst his opponent down very quickly.
Yep, and of course he rightly played the Stone Shield there. You can't just clear the board and expect to be okay. Again, these quick attack creatures playing a huge role. But luckily he does have a quick attack creature. That means that's 1 less turn that Stone Shield's in play. Normally that Stone Shield would be lingering around for an extra turn, but instead the pressure's right back on Maleidrab again. He has to deal with these creatures or find a way to deal all 13 damage to Kelthor next turn, which
I think he can kill. He can Death Seeker for 3. Wraith is 9. Alter. Yeah, isn't that 13? Doesn't he have? I mean, I think he missed it, but doesn't he have the kill? Can't he?
I do know a timing issue because it's actually happened to me. If you've got Void Wraiths on the field and your opponent does damage to you at the same time the Void Wraith would kill your opponent, if the damage your opponent were to do to you kills you, the Void Wraith damage happens like a half second later and doesn't count. So
was that on stream, Kinetic?
That is on stream, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, he's absolutely correct. I've had that happen to me as well. It does go by lane first, so like the top lane technically happens first if there is an attack. But I don't know if any of you guys play Magic the Gathering to use for comparison, but basically it's like a triggered ability, and the damage happens, and then while the triggered ability is quote-quote on the stack, if you will, the game ends because you're at 0.
Yeah, and one other thing, you're talking about how he could deal 13 damage to Kelthor there. Week of Taxes was in play, so I'm not sure if that came into your calculations. But
nope, it did not. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I know that he had 12 resources, so for sure he had 9 damage just from the 2 voids and the POW.
Shield. So it was important that he got that in play. Let's see. Can he kill him next turn? I'm trying to look. Let's see. We know he's got double altar. He's got Altar of Ash in play. Does he? He has a Death Seeker in his yard. Or no, he shuffled it in with Night of the Rising Moon Singularity, right? There's no Death Seeker.
I didn't actually catch which creature he discarded.
Well, if he does have a Death Seeker in his yard, he can win. But I'm not sure if he does.
Right.
The board plunked up here by Kelthor. There is an Earthgraph. I thought he didn't have that. I must have missed that when we looked at his deck. Let's see. Big hand here. He's going to immediately discard the Night of the Rising Moon. Got 4 altars in hand. That'll do it. I guess we don't need to see
that adds up right there.
Yeah, just going to go straight to the Dome. And Maleidrab, despite being at 1 for a huge portion of this game, is just going to alter his opponent out. So Maleidrab, I mean, showing just how favorable this matchup is. Going to take the Game 1 lead, but remember, this is a best 2 out of 3 series. Entirely possible for Ben Billard to come back. I keep using the term sideboarding for lack of a better term. Actual sideboarding rules are going to come into play later in the tournament, but like Kinetic explained, he's able to change his deck completely as long as he sticks to the champions that he registered with. So there very well might be a different build of Kelthor. There very well might be a different build of Demiria. We might see the Price of the Void. We'll see if Maleidrab even sticks with the same Demiria build, knowing that his opponent can bring in the Price of the Void.
Just so you guys know, Maleidrab brought in Demiria and Cassandra, so it's very possible he could play Cassandra in the next game as well.
Yep. Absolutely, that's what he registered with. Those are 2 damn good choices, too. Those are arguably the 2 best decks right now. And it's pretty hard to argue against signing up with the 2 best decks as long as you're confident that you can play them, which Maleidrab, of course, being the excellent player that he is, absolutely can play them both at a high level. Yep. Here we go. Game 2 with Maleidrab up 1-0. And looks like they both stuck with their heroes. There is a Black Skull Crusher in play, in hand for Kelthor. Interesting. I wonder if that's in his main deck. He kept in POW Deathseeker, which is interesting because he saw that his opponent has Earth Grasp. I don't know about doing that. So that kind of makes me suspect that the Kelthor player either didn't sideboard or did not sideboard correctly, neither of which would be a great scenario for him.
Yeah, I mean, after you lose a game, it was a close game. As you rightly point out, it was almost always in Demiria's favor. There was just a little bit of damage that came in when people weren't really... Maleidrab was not anticipating that much, which... with Earth's Grasp, POW Deathseekers and Black Skull Shredders become much less valuable, but potentially adding that Black Skull Crusher could be an addition to his deck because we didn't see any last game, or that could have just been an unfortunate circumstance for Ben Billard. And additionally, you know, he is only at 1331 ELO. He may not have access to all the cards in his in the game right now, so perhaps he's limited to only 1 or 2 Black Skull Shredders, or sorry, Crushers.
Well, there's the price of the Void, so we know he at least has access to 5 towers. Unfortunately, his board did get wiped with Insect Swarm, but he's going to follow up with a big Tainted Orc, which is typically one of the better cards against this type of deck. I don't know if it's amazing necessarily against this particular build of Demiria, but I think in general it's a big threat against Inferno since almost all their damage, all their removal is damage-based, and it does have that huge 7 health. Looks like Molly Drab made very few, if any, changes to his deck, just sticking to what works. And here he's going to get that Mass Rage in play, causing the Orc to attack, bringing Demiria down to 12. 12, I think, is still relatively safe. I would assume that the big Crusher comes down this turn, and it does. And we'll see how Mally Drab wants to deal with that.
Yeah, he can't deal with it with spells, so he's going to have to add that to his calculations. Obviously, the Altar of Shadows will work perfectly fine, so that's going to be his go-to card for now. Otherwise, Stone Shield's also effective against Black Skull Crushers, but otherwise that is going to be a definite issue for him, especially if War Tank comes down underneath it. He's going to have to start blocking it, I guess, with Void Raids if he draws them, which of course he has no creatures right now.
I find it pretty ironic that he's got a card in play that makes his opponent attack, and he's got a card that prevents his opponent from attacking. I think that is a kinetic 1240 level tactic. But no, that does work out pretty well. The price of the Void, I don't know why he's not upping his fortune. I think I would here. That's going to be devastating when it comes down. If Mally Drab does this for too long, he's going to die out of nowhere.
Yep, you're correct there. The price of the Void taking out Earth's Grasp could lead to a huge turn from Ben Billard, but as it is right now, he has a guaranteed 6 damage on the board that can't be removed through spells. So even if the other guys are removed through spells, the Tainted Orc and the Shredder, he can follow it up with 2 more Shredders, a Shredder and a POW, and have so much more damage in conjunction with that price of the Void. So we'll see if that actually is something that Ben Billard is able to pull off. Right now, Mally Drab is drawing all the stall cards he needs right now, so I wonder if maybe seeing these Black Skull Crushers sort of makes him think more defensively here. So he's going to play a little bit slower, try to play as many celebrations as possible and all the stall cards, and maybe try to have a little bit more effective use of Tower of Oblivion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with everything that you said. He goes ahead and plays 2 Stone Shields in one turn instead of just 1. He's pretty determined not to take damage here, and it turns out that's absolutely correct. Had he only played the 1, he might have gotten blown out with Price of the Void. Interestingly, Kelthor not willing to discard the Price of the Void. He had the opportunity on his turn to go for Night of the Rising Moon, but the only fortune that he had in his hand was the Price of the Void, and he was unwilling to discard that. We're going to get a look at the post-sideboarded deck here, Mally Drab. Doesn't look like he made too many big changes. The deck looks pretty much the same to me. And he decides that he doesn't particularly want to draw Chaos Seer, removes multiple copies of it from his deck. There is one of the spell shields being removed because, of course, the creatures are forced to attack with Mass Rage. He could remove the other one here, but I think it's better not to. I think you should save the Price of the Void for surprise value. And he is instead simply going to opt to play a bunch of guys and put the action once again back on Mally Drab.
Yeah, and that's one key aspect that I see a lot of players sort of make this mistake quite often, where they have a card like a Stream Singer or Price of the Void or some sort of Dispel, and they play it a little bit too early. So, for instance, Mally Drab has 12 health left. If Ben Billard were to play Price of the Void in a turn where he could only deal like 6 damage or something, then Mally Drab can then answer afterwards, and all of a sudden you've sort of wasted what could have been a setup for a killing blow. So we'll see if Ben Billard is going to play that properly. Obviously, there are a lot of things here, like Stone Shields and Earth's Grasp. Both are things that he wants to remove so he can get to Demiria and deal that damage. But we'll see how it plays out. Again, I think discarding those Chaos Seers sort of plays into the Tower of Oblivion strategy.
Yep.
So that makes sense from that standpoint. Celebrations is probably going to be played this turn, and Tower of Oblivion will probably not be played yet, obviously, but there he goes, killing off those creatures. And a bridge. Perfect. Perfect. Clear board from Maleidrab. He is at ease.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right with people playing Dispel effects too early. That actually reminds me a lot of a game that I casted last week on this exact stream. I watched a Kelthor player against I want to say Ignatius player, and Week of the Mercenaries was a card, and both decks had POW Deathseeker, and on one of the key turns, the Ignatius player attacked, or it might have been the Kelthor player, one of the players played a POW Deathseeker and attacked, and then because he did that and didn't wait for Week of the Mercenaries, he no longer had another POW as an out for him. I think it was the Kelthor player that did this, and then he did end up drawing the POW on the next turn, but he was 1 point short even with Week of the Mercenaries, whereas if he had just waited, he would have won that game. And little subtle things like that make a huge difference. If Kelthor knocks Demiria here down to 1 or 2, Demiria can still win, whereas if he saves it, the price of the void that is, until he can just kill him in one turn, and he knocks his opponent to 0, obviously Demiria can't win anymore. Here is 2 damage with Alter. I don't think he can kill him this turn, right? Am I missing something? Yeah, no way. He's at 18. He's just doing some quick damage. We'll see what he does from here. It might be a Knight of the Rising Moon follow-up. Gonna go for Tower, try to maximize that so it doesn't do any damage to him, and then he is gonna follow up with Knight of the Rising Moon. He peels an Armageddon here, definitely useful. He's got the Stone Shield and the Earth's Grasp still in play. The Stone Shield is going to get popped here, and then we'll go from there.
Yep, and that was a good play by Maleidrab, because he's able to thin his hand out so Tower of Oblivion did not affect him at all. Still discarding cards from Kelthor, dealing a little bit of damage. Obviously, he would have liked Kelthor to have more cards in his hand at the time, but regardless, I think that was a good play right there to not take any damage, leave the Stone Shield in play, and now he has another Stone Shield already, and of course those altars that he played back in his deck again. So Maleidrab hanging on, doing a very good job of dealing with these 2 BS crushers so far.
Yeah, he's going to remove the Earthquake from his deck, which I think is fine. I mean, given the board state, Earthquake would not help him at all. We can see in his deck that he doesn't have any real, actual, permanent answer to the Crushers. Instead, he's simply going to try to race his opponent. He's going to try to kill his opponent before the Crushers kill him, because he knows at the end of the day he can't remove them. So basically, he's going to play a stall game in which he deals damage with Wraith, deals damage with Altar, damage with Tower if he manages to recur that, and basically try to kill his opponent with the Black Skull Crusher sitting there on board.
Yeah, and Ben Billard, while this doesn't necessarily apply now since his melee row is full, he has 5 quick attack creatures in his hand right now, and Earth's Grasp is in play, so although he has that many melee cards, it's also going to prevent him from playing them. Too many melee in play means that he's going to have a harder time removing cards from his hand. So that's also problematic for Ben Billard. So a lot of ways that Maleidrab is sort of gaining a slight advantage here. Although he is out of stall cards right now, I wonder if he'll play a Singularity to try to draw an extra card if he doesn't get some way to slow down these Black Skull Crushers this turn.
Yes, sir, I agree. He's got double bridge in hand, so if he needs to remove the Crushers, at least temporarily, he can do so, but it means the fire is going to be an issue, too. He's going to dig up the Forbidden Flame, which I believe was either discarded or used earlier, and I'm not sure if he's going to use it here. He could up his magic and wipe the board of everything but the Crushers, but the Crushers obviously still a factor, and we can see that he does not have Stone Shield or Altar in his hand. There is the plane to leave him with just the Crusher. Now going to get bridged back. Maleidrab using his resources perfectly with 0 remaining, but the important part is that he manages to clear the board. And this is inevitably going to happen throughout the game. Kelthor getting stuck with more and more useless cards in his hand. The Deathseekers are actually useless, unless he's got Altar, in which case they're still pretty bad. And the quick attack guys, the Shredders, I mean, they're not useless, but again, they're pretty underwhelming. staring down the Earth Grasp, especially given the fact that Demiria has multiple Stone Shield effects. So we'll see what he does here. He's probably just going to play a bunch of guys, but I think that pretty much every card that Maladrap can draw is going to be useful, whereas there are a lot of very, very bad draws potentially for Kelthor.
Yeah, and he's doing a good job of playing his BS Crusher, getting that back on the board, and then playing low-cost creatures or other cards just to thin out his hand, because he knows that there's recurring Tower of Oblivions in this deck. He knows that hand size is a problem, but I do think that Maladrap is in a pretty good situation right now. He has so many ways to deal damage.
Yeah.
It looks like he's even banishing out a POW Deathseeker thanks to his own Earth's Grasp in play.
Yeah, I'm doing a quick count here. 2 Wraith, 3 Altar, 1 Tower, 1 Altar Asha. Wow, he's got, what, 6, 7 cards left that do damage? That is quite a bit.
It's definitely an interesting deck from Maladrap. I know a lot of people have done, not a lot of people, but I remember like Llama Balonic was doing Demiria Slowpoke, and I think this is actually a really innovative way of taking advantage of the Mass Rage style, which has been more and more common lately, and also using these Altars of Destruction, which are just an insane in a deck like this where opponents are not able to really control their own creatures on the board, and they're constantly being wiped. Definitely a nice, inventive deck from Maladrap. I'm really pleased to see this matchup here. Not just because Kelthor is losing, but because it's it's just a really nice invention from Maladrap. And even though Ben Billard is using the Blast Gold Crushers, he's not winning with them yet. So I think that's important to note, that despite everyone's complaints, Kelthor is beatable. So
Of course it is.
yeah.
I think Kelthor in general, I mean, not that I'm the best player in the world by any means, but I mean, Kelthor is a deck that I'm very familiar, comfortable with, and I have said all along and will continue to say that Kelthor absolutely has an issue with Slowpoke-style decks. I would not be surprised at all. It looks like Maladrap is in good position this game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Maladrap managed to win this series 2-0. He's got quite a bit of damage on the board. I mean, his opponent's at 7. He's got that Wraith that if it dies, it's going to do 3 more. We know he's got at least 1 Altar in his hand. And when we saw the remaining cards in his deck with the revised tactics, we know he's got several more cards, including other copies of Altar, that are still in the deck. So, I mean, Kelthor is going to have to win pretty soon. Ironically, Mass Rage is going to make that Void Wraith actually get in there, bring his opponent at 6. There's an Altar that's going to put him at 4. Going to draw a card, has access to Night of the Rising Moon. He's got another Altar in hand. So, yeah, 1 more piece of damage in any form is going to do the trick. We'll see if he can find it here. And he does not, so we're going to continue playing.
Yeah, I don't agree with his order of play there. He played those Altars first, and he put cards back on top of his deck, which sort of limited his opportunity to draw another damaging card. So that is a misplay right there. That he could have won the game, but instead he's not going to lose the game because of that. But certainly it's going to slow things down. We'll see exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, the Void Wraith is now being dealt with, so that's not going to be an issue for Ben Billard. But
I mean, I still think Drab wins. I mean, I think he'll just find another Altar and kill his opponent. Mathematically, I think he can stall out until then, especially if he's drawing at least 2 cards a turn. But you are still correct. That was a misplay, even if it might not end up mattering. Like I said, I feel the biggest issue of the game, if I had to just in 1 or 2 sentences tell you why Ben Billard is losing this game, I would say because he sideboarded suboptimally. I think it is because he kept in POW Deathseeker, which is awful in the matchup, did not bring in enough cards that do the trick in the matchup, and basically set himself up, despite having those Crushers, to have a matchup that does not favor him. As we see here, there's going to be 3 Altars left in the deck for Demiria. He's going to remove 3 non-Altar cards, whatever they may be. Insect Swarm, what's he going to get rid of? Maybe a Campfire, too. Maybe Mass Rage. Doesn't really matter. Yep, he's going to get rid of the Mass Rage. He's got 3 Altars left, and the second he finds one, the game ends. And, lo and behold, There it is.
Yeah, and that's all thanks to revised tactics, I think. Just thinning out that deck. If you look at how many cards are in Maladrap's deck at the end of this game, it's not very many at all. So the likelihood of him drawing those altars later on becomes so much higher. So, as you mentioned, it was only a matter of time before Maladrap was victorious in this best of three. Yeah, a very, very easy counter for Kelthor right there. Demiria just having such an advantage in that matchup.
Pretty easy win for Demiria. It's going to be a 2-0 win for Maladrap over Ben Billard. I commend him for his efforts. Good for him, being a 1330 player, facing one of the best players in the world. But in this particular matchup, he is going to come up short. We're going to go to a pretty exciting matchup next. I like this matchup a lot. I'm going to be a little bit of a fanboy. We're going to see Cassandra against Ignatius. Now, I don't know who's playing yet, but at top level play, I like this matchup a lot. It's two of the best decks. It's two very explosive decks that can do some really cool, really unfair things out of nowhere. And I think this matchup is very, very dynamic. Two decks employing two completely different strategies, but in a very interactive way.
All right, it looks like it is a hybrid version from the Mots here. We see he has Forbidden Flame. At least he is going 3-3-3, it looks like, with his stat points. So interesting there. A lot of Ignatius tend to favor either Fortune heavy or Spell heavy. I'm guessing that the Mots is going to be more of a Fortune heavy deck, just relying on Forbidden Flame there for the extra board clear.
Yeah, we got to look at Cassandra's deck with revised tactics. It looks pretty standard. He's got 4 copies of Pillage, which is definitely good in this matchup. Of note, both of these players over 1500. This is going to be a high-level game. Going to be Gera Kirill on the left, and as I already mentioned, the Mots on the right. Yeah, sweep attack here is going to be interesting. Luckily, he doesn't have any way to get rid of the Holy Praetor, so he's not going to be able to do too much damage with that. He's got both Hall of Amnesia and Maw in his hand, so pretty fortune heavy, as he mentioned. I'm going to assume that he is probably topping out at Chaos here, doesn't have too many guys beyond that. Usually the builds that I've seen just stop at 2 Might, and then only have the magic pretty much for Forbidden Flame. And then other than that, they're very, very fortune heavy. Who do you think this matchup favors?
That is something I'm not really confident in answering right now. I think, again, Cassandra relies a bit on drawing Prison at the right time, drawing the right creatures at the right time. While Ignatius, I think, is maybe a little bit more consistent, but he doesn't quite have the same big turns that Cassandra can have. It's very easy for Cassandra to kill off what you have on the board just by creating a better board turn after turn, and then lock you out and also fill up her own board with devotion and things like that. But at the same time, Ignatius does have a lot of answers with, like, if he's running Thrones, I don't know if he is, but he also has Forbidden Flame there already, so that's one answer that he has up his sleeve. Already up to 4 Fortune here, 4 Destiny, so I'm thinking that Thrones are fairly likely. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it favors.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pillage, which we know that Cassandra has 4 copies of, is a pretty big card in this matchup, as it often is in Cassandra against any control deck. Basically, the plan for Cassandra against most control decks is to develop the board pretty quickly and then go for Pillage and prevent the opponent from recovering. Tyrion brings up a really good point. If his opponent opts to, if the Mots goes to up his Destiny there to 4, as opposed to upping his magic by 1, when we know that he's got Forbidden Flame in hand, he's clearly doing that for a reason, and I agree that reason is probably because he's trying to find Throne of Renewal. The fact that he has Flame in his hand but not Renewal in his hand at this time makes me think that even if he does have Renewal, that maybe might have been a misplay and he maybe should have upped his magic anyway. As it stands, Cassandra is quite ahead on board but was not ahead on life as of this turn. However, he does manage to knock his opponent down to 17. Still no Throne of Renewal for the Mots, and he's got only 2 resources to work with, and unfortunately not a lot to do with them.
Yeah, he can't even play his Observatory this turn, which I'm sure he'd really like to. He did level Destiny up to 5, and now we can see his deck. He has Throne of Renewal in there, all 4 copies, so that is exactly what he's hoping for. But yeah, I'm beginning to think that Cassandra is slightly favored in this matchup because Ignatius is fairly weak in the early stages of the game, and Cassandra is not by any means. So if Cassandra is able to sort of establish a good board early and deal significant damage before being wiped by Forbidden Flame, I think it's going to be a little bit problematic for the Mots to try to come back. I don't think Ignatius quite has the comeback potential that some other decks have.
Really not liking how this is being played overall by the Mots. Once again, he opts to up his Destiny as opposed to his Magic. That's got to be wrong. If you up your Magic next turn, right now, you can Flame and wipe the board. Whereas if you draw Throne of Renewal, which he didn't, but let's just say that he did, he could just up his Destiny right now and use it. So basically the way that he played it is he's unable to Flame right now when he should be able to. And not flaming here is going to matter a lot. It's going to cost him at least 3 damage, possibly more if Week of Training gets activated. There's a POW Deathseeker in hand. It's going to set him up to get blown out by Prison here. That's going to be the important thing. That's actually going to be the game. So not upping his Magic there and not going for Forbidden Flame when he had the chance is going to be the difference between winning and losing. We all make mistakes. I certainly make a lot, but in this case, the Mots has only himself to blame, and game 1 here, and I believe what is the best 2 out of 3 series, going to be a pretty easy win for Garrett Kirill in this Cass against Ignatius matchup.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The turn he leveled his Destiny up to 4. Having Forbidden Flame in hand, you think that you should just go for Magic instead, but regardless, it was still an acceptable play. But then leveling it up to 5 on the very next turn, I think, was probably the biggest mistake that he made.
Absolutely.
Because there's no need to do that when on your very next turn, if you did draw it, as you mentioned, you could just level it up then. So you definitely point that out rightly there, that the Mots should still be in the game right now. But, unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to sort of read into those things in the heat of the moment. So,
yep.
Yeah, just a misplay that hopefully the Mots is able to try to come back from in the next game.
And to cut in for a few seconds, guys, just so you guys know, after this game we will be having our first code drawing. If you type Team League Rocks, one word with an exclamation point, that will get you into the drawing. We will be watching the next 1 or 2 games of this match, but after this match we will have the first drawing. So, turning it back over to our beautiful casters.
I know that Tyrion is extremely sexually attractive. I don't think I'm beautiful. But nonetheless, he's correct. We are going to be doing the drawing after this. It's one of 2 drawings. There's going to be another one at 4 o'clock, so absolutely stick with us until the end of the cast and enjoy some free stuff. If you're lucky enough to win, you do have to say Team League Rocks in the chat, like he said. And this is going to be game 2 of the exact same match. The Mots manages to, I don't know about punt, because, I mean, had he played correctly, I don't know that he would have won. But he certainly throws away a shot at a game that he would have had, and he opts to change decks here. We're no longer looking at Cass at Ignatius, but instead it is Cass against Hakim. And it looks like a very creature-based Hakim, since his hand has quite a few guys, including Dervish Masters.
Yeah, that's a card that I don't see very often at all, and there are 2 of them in the starting hand. They're actually sort of an underrated card, I think, but at the same time, they're mostly good at dealing with other creatures. That's when they get the benefit of their special attack twice. But yeah, very interesting to see such a creature-heavy Hakim here. I think the Mots is just trying to maybe try new things and maybe catch his opponent by surprise here with a creature-heavy deck.
You know what catches me by surprise? Week of Austerity. That's certainly not coming from Cassandra, so what I'm seeing is Hakim switching to a very creature-heavy deck that includes Week of Austerity. I'm gonna say that it strikes me as unusual. That's the best way that I can put it. Yeah, okay, never mind. You know what? It's suboptimal. There's something wrong there. That's a flawed strategy. I'm gonna be pretty blunt with it.
Yeah, I would like to say that perhaps this isn't a creature-based deck, and maybe he's just somehow drawn a majority of his creatures in his starting hand. But having multiple copies of Dervish Masters, having 3 cards at 4 might already sort of makes me believe that there are definitely a very high high amount of creatures in his deck. So yeah, suboptimal is putting it nicely. I think it's just a mistake, really.
I agree.
It's likely that Cassandra will have fewer creatures than Hakeem at the rate at which we're seeing creatures in his hand, anyways.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I suspect that perhaps the mods, Ignatius is maybe his main deck, and maybe he, just for whatever reason, felt that the matchup against Cassandra is bad, and he kind of switched to the second deck that he signed up with, which is obviously Hakeem, probably without testing it too much, and it may just be an oversight that he accidentally left in Week of Austerity, or maybe he didn't think it through, whatever. Maybe he thinks Cassandra has more creatures than it does. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but overall, I really don't think that the Mott's has a cohesive deck, and I'm not convinced that a creature-based Hakeem, even if it was built perfectly, would necessarily beat Cassandra anyway, so I can't help but give the advantage to Cassandra in this game.
Yeah, and I don't want to be critical of the Mott's or anything. I don't think Hakeem is his main deck either. I've talked with the Mott's a few times. I've played against him a number of times, and I don't really recall him ever talking about Hakeem or Ignatius, for that matter, so I think perhaps he just wanted to have some fun entering the tournament and maybe try out new decks that he maybe hasn't had the chance to play in Jackpot or anything, or maybe he's only played a couple times. Or at the very least, he, just for this specific matchup, thought he saw something where Week of Austerity was going to be helpful in this particular matchup. Honestly, I don't know what his train of thought is. We won't really know without asking him personally, but regardless, yeah, just Hakeem in general against Cassandra, if it's not a mill-based deck, even if it is a mill-based deck, I don't think it's that amazing of a matchup, but Academy creatures are just not as good generally as Haven creatures, and he's going to need a lot of spell support.
If Academy does have a weakness right now, it probably is the quality or lack thereof of its creatures. I mean, you have to keep in mind that Academy is relatively new. It will get buffed as time goes on, but right now the creatures are pretty mediocre. And once again, a key card for Cassandra. I hate to be a broken record, but I mean, it's just Pillage again. I mean, Hakeem is once again a very control-ish deck. Even if this is creature-based, I mean, he's clearly not the aggro in this matchup. He's playing a ton of evade creatures trying to control his opponent. And yeah, Pillage is another backbreaking card. If hypothetically, let's say a Pillage came down next turn, I'm really not sure what Hakeem would do to get out of that. He does have both Earthquake and Insect Swarm in his hand, but it's not as good as you think, because that would wipe his own guys, and there's 2 flyers on the field for Cassandra. So I'm not seeing any amazing plays this turn. He could Soul Reaver a guy and play 2 evade dudes, but that would actually clog up his front row and make it so the evade creatures can't evade. So once again, I failed to see an amazing play here. Insect Swarm, I don't see the point of that. Yeah, he's going to go for the Swarm. He's going to maximize the damage. I think that's fine, but it doesn't actually solve the problem that he's having here. The evade guy is either going to die for free or move out of the way, depending on where it decides to go. Is he going to chump block with a Scholar? Nope, he's going to play...
He has a second evade, so blocking both of those is a fine play, I think. But unfortunately, with Prison now, he's going to be looking at a very much an uphill battle for the rest of the game, and he's already at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah. Big turn here. Wolf Captain and Prison. That's going to be tough. He's going to move the Wolf Captain. That seems fine. And then we'll see if he opts to move the Radiant Glory or just attack with it. He does opt to move it. And yeah, no resources this turn for Hakeem.
Yeah, and spacing his creatures like that means that it's much... Well, it's not a guarantee now that evade on that top Rakshasa Skirmisher is actually going to be blocking an attack. So now there's that 50% chance that it moves down instead of up. So
if he attacks with the bottom Wolf Captain first, he'll be able to pick off a Skirmisher no matter what. Because if it moves down, he can pick off the bottom one with the Glory for free, and if it moves up, he can just throw a guy behind the Wolf Captain and pick off that one for free. So either way, he's going to get a free kill on a Skirmisher here. It's just a matter of how he wants to go about doing that. He's going to start out with Devotion, which feels pretty unnecessary to me. I don't know why he did that there. I also don't like this placement. I feel that this takes away the free kill that he had. Had he simply waited to play that guy, it would have worked out a little bit better. I don't know that it matters. I think he's far enough ahead to where he's still in really good shape. But I definitely think that turn could have been played differently from Cassandra's point of view.
Yeah, I don't think what he did was necessarily wrong. He definitely missed an opportunity to kill off one of the skirmishers, which would be nice. I mean, evade is never a good thing to leave on the board if you can get rid of it. But instead he opts for the 2 damage on Hakim. I mean, a nail is already gone, which I'm sure he really didn't want that to happen, just be a target of a Soul Reaver right away, but Mott's is able to block just by playing a Scholar, only taking 1 damage now. But still, I don't think it's enough. And again, there's going to be the option to kill off a Skirmisher.
Yeah, this is going to be a big turn. He can kill the Scholar for free, do 2 damage to a Skirmisher, and kill the other Skirmisher, and play Pillage all in one turn. Again, he doesn't care what I think and opts to do something else, but I think he's far enough ahead to where, despite playing what I believe is a bit suboptimally, I think he is still going to win.
Yeah, now we see there are more spell cards coming into the hand of the Motts, but they're not necessarily spell cards that would really help him that much. He can quick attack or shadow image, on probably the Wolf Captain and take out the Radiant Glory in the bottom row, but that is his entire turn, and he only has 3 health left, so that's not even really an option. He'd then be forced to chump block the top Wolf Captain, which would then, that Skirmisher would die. The second one could then invade, but...
Yeah, and he can live the turn, but not very comfortably. This is going to require him moving guys around like so. And yeah, I guess if he's going to play it this way, he's going to be dead. It's going to leave him at 1, and Derek Hill going to waste no time, just going to go right in and end it. So the Mott's going to lose 2 pretty one-sided games, unfortunately. And the Ignacius game, he made a key misplay, and on that last game there, he was never really in it. I mean, I don't think that Hakim deck is a viable Tier 1 deck, and he was playing against arguably the best deck in the game right now, against a at least decent pilot in a 1500 player from Jarrett Kirill. So it is what it is. We're going to take a very short break here, let Tyrion and I catch my breath. We're going to tag in Kinetic, who's going to do the first drawing, and one of you guys are going to win a code for a Forgotten Wars and a 5 Powers pack. You're watching the Draft Tournament, Round of 64, presented by Kinetic 42. We'll be right back.
Alright guys, I'm going to take over for a few minutes over here, and in the meantime, if you can... Oh, that's the wrong screen. If you can type in Team League Rocks in exclamation point if you would like to join the raffle, we will have that going off very soon. We have currently 87 viewers, so the more people who join the raffle, more chances you have a chance to get some codes. Doing pretty well so far. We've gotten about 2 hours of content so far, and we've got about 2 more hours of content for you guys. So plenty to do, plenty to see. Next up, we're probably going to have some games. Let's see, I pulled one up. I think we're going to see Gazelle next game, so that'll be a fun game. And we're going to close the raffle in just a few moments. So if you would like to join it, go ahead and do so now. Not too much more time, and then we'll raffle it off and give that code out. So Closing the raffle in, let's say, about 5 seconds. Last call. Last call. All right, rolling the dice. And the winner is going to be CPP Nerf. So let's show that on the screen. Derp, derp, derp. 1 second. And CPP Nerf, congratulations. We will send you a code to get yourself some packs from the Team League. So congratulations. I'm going to put on a video real quick, just a few things so we can get our casters to catch their breath, get some food and drink inside of them, you know. But for the most part, we're just going to go back into casting in about, say, 5 minutes or so. So just give me a few moments. I will put that up for you guys. Let's swap this over to splash screen. All right. Which one of these should we put on for the moment? I will choose. Where's one that's a little bit longer? No, that's probably a little old. Well, just give me a few moments. I will put something up for you guys to watch while we were going to go grab a little bit of a drink and stuff, and then we will head over to some more games in just a few moments. So, let's see. Alright, let's pull that up, and we can watch this video right here. Alright.
Hello everyone, this is Space Elephant from the Might and Magic Duel of Champions team at Ubisoft. So I hope you're doing well. I'm here to show you a few mechanics about this new class of cards that we're introducing in the upcoming expansion of 5 Towers. So this new class of cards is called the Buildings. So here is the Tower of the Smith, which is a unique card, a neutral card as well, which requires 4 resources points. So the Tower of the Smith has some special ability. So when a creature at Tower of the Smith attacks a hero, opponent discards a card at random. And if an Inferno creature is at the Tower of the Smith, because you can see it's clearly an Inferno art direction, players cannot draw cards outside of their supply phase. So that's a very interesting and surprising card at the same time. Here is the War Tent, which is clearly a stronghold building, and this tent also has a few abilities, just like creatures at War Tent get +2, and when a creature at War Tent dies from combat damage, destroy a War Tent. So this one is non-unique, so I can put 4 in my deck. So guys, now I'm playing in practice mode against the AI, and I will not mulligan my hand because I want to have at least one of the towers in my deck. So here it is, I have the Tower of the Smith right here. So I will add a few resources, and we will accelerate the video until I have enough resources to play my tower. Okay, so now it's time for some action. I will increase my destiny points here, so I can play the Tower of the Smith right here. I will add it under my creature right there, and I have a clear row right here, so I'll be able to attack the hero, and he will have to discard a card at random. So that's pretty uncool for him actually. There you go. So here you see that I have the possibility to do some interesting combo using the War Tent right here. So I will put it under my Dream Partner here. Use the Enrage ability here to destroy this one here and attack the other one with 2 additional points. So guys, I'm now back in a deck builder. I changed my hero here to Fleshbane to make sure I make a good use of those 2 towers that are more necro-oriented, like the Tower of the Garner, and the other building, the Soul Spire. So this one adds a crippling 1 to any creature on top of it. So that's pretty interesting. For the necro creatures that already have the infect ability, the Tower of the Garner has 3 points of infection, so that's very, very powerful. So let's play. So first here I have this very interesting card, the Raider, and when the Raider enters a battleground, you search your library for a unique building and put that building into your hand, so that's very interesting. That's what I'm about to do, actually. So we'll hand turn. So here you go. I'll play the Raider here. And here I have the Tower of the Gardener that I can play. So it's now in my hand. So I will increase here my mana. I will put my tower just under my fire here. And I will now I will use this poison ability to affect this creature with a poison of 3. One of the cool things about tower is that they don't disappear actually, so they don't disappear after 1 turn. So as you can see, it's still here under my Vampire Knight, so I can still use it to infect this creature here. So guys, that was it. That was just a sneak peek, because there's more to come in the upcoming spoiler stream activity. So stay tuned on the Facebook and the forums, of course, to know the exact timing for that. So I hope you appreciated the new buildings. Actually, what is pretty cool is that the buildings don't move. So for example, compared to a Fortune card, so if you put a building there, it won't disappear after 1 turn, so that's pretty interesting. So think about all of your creatures with, for example, quick attack or swift. That's pretty fun for that. So guys, thanks a lot for your attention. My name is Space Elephant, and see you on the battleground.
Alright, we're going to be coming back now. I have unmuted the other casters so they can jump in as well. But we're going to be setting up the next games. I believe that Enlightened Owl's back, and Tyrion might be back as well. Are you guys there?
I know I am.
Alright, so we do have Owl back still. Tyrion is probably still coming.
Totally here.
Alright, we're all here. Yes! Alright, while I set up the game, they can set up you guys with what's going to go on.
Welcome back, guys, to the Duel of Champions Team League Round of 64. I'm Enlightened Owl, co-casting with Tyrion, and we've got a good one coming up. We have an Ishuma against Sandalphon match, which, I mean, if you guys watched the broadcast last week, we had some junk, we had some Miranda, we had some Char, stuff like that. But you're going to see more and more. The deeper we get into the tournament, the more we're going to see viable champs. We've seen a lot of Cassandra, a lot of Sandal today. We haven't seen Ishuma yet, but I'm sure we're going to see more, and that's really not a coincidence. These are just the best champs in the game. I really enjoy these competitive matches between 2 really good decks. However, I am not a good Sanctuary player, and I think Tyrion is going to have quite a bit of insight into how this matchup typically plays out.
I do love my Sanctuary. And when you said junk from last week, I really hope that you weren't talking about my Takana, which... it's certainly going to be falling under that list. I played 2 different variations of an experimental Takana deck trying to counter what I thought my opponent would play, and unfortunately I totally misread what he played, so I played into my own defeat there. But yeah, no, I do really enjoy Sanctuary. I've played a lot of Ishuma. That was actually the deck that I hit 1,000 ELO with when I first started playing.
Yeah,
I loved Ishuma, and then Takana was the deck I hit 1,500 ELO with, so definitely probably the most playtime is in the Sanctuary faction. Kaiko is my favorite hero. Not that I've ever gotten one to work successfully, consistently, but, you know. There's just so many things to like about Sanctuary.
We have an experienced Sanctuary professional here, folks, going to walk you through all the intricacies. It's hard to bet against Sandalphon in any matchup. It's one of those decks like Cassandra that has at least a shot against anything. We don't know if this is going to be an aggro or control version, but we're going to see the hand, and it is clearly an aggro variant.
Yeah,
Griffin?
you have to add the word variant after you see the Griffin Battle Priest there.
Yeah, that one stood out pretty quickly. How do you feel about Griffin Battle Priest?
I think it is a card with, unfortunately, an ability that is very hard to utilize. But
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
that being said, it does have some interesting ways of being used. I think against Ishima, it's probably much less effective than it would be against some other decks. But for now, like Ishima having gold piles is super standard. Of course, it gets a gold pile out before a week of taxes comes up on the very next turn.
Skillfully.
So, I mean, already that Ishima luck coming into play here. One of the reasons why everyone hated Ishima right before the Five Towers patch. But either way, yeah, it's an aggro Sandy variant, and I think in general, Sandy should have a very reasonable matchup here. Having access to spells like Geyser, having the Wombo combo, are very, very effective against Sanctuary creatures, which often have 3 health or less. Obviously, Shark Guards only have 2. Stream Singers have 3, Coral Priestess have 3, Sama Stalkers have 3, so a lot of those crucial early cards can be obliterated by Geyser. And yeah, aside from that, Ishima does have all the outmaneuvers in the world, so often the strategy is to rush down the opponent just by moving things out of the way. We'll see how this plays out.
Now, I should point out that despite the questionable Griffin Battle Priest, the Sandalphon player here is Maz Sparrow, who is absolutely one of the overall best Haven players in the world. Now, granted, I think he is more known for his excellent Cassandra play, more so than Sandalphon, but I don't doubt for one moment he absolutely knows how to pilot this deck at a very, very high level. And so far, he's made a couple of interesting choices. He agreed with Tyrion so much that Griffin Battle Priest is maybe not great in this matchup, that he discarded it very, very early on for the ability to play these 2 Griffins. The game has stabilized a fair bit since then. I mean, with 2 creature-based decks, it is, of course, going to be a bit of a blow-for-blow situation. Right now, we do see a race that Ishima is currently winning, but as Tyrion pointed out, the X factor in this kind of matchup is the spells more so than the creatures. And there was a 2-for-1 Geyser right there, which is a great example of what Tyrion was talking about how the spells make the difference. He's going to move the Griffin past the turn, and the hand for the Ishima player, we haven't mentioned him yet, Ply Skin, Plick Skin. He's got all guys.
You see, honestly, though, I think that might have been a misplay. He probably should have attacked with the Griffin into the Sayama champion first. The Sayama champion would have only retaliated with 1 damage, and the Griffin would have stayed alive. After using the Geyser, that Sayama champion be at 1 health. So maybe he wanted to keep the Griffin alive, but maybe he could have did a little bit more damage to that champion.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to move the Griffin out of harm's way, but the odds that Ishima has 0 outmaneuver in his hand seems pretty poor to me. He's actually just going to opt to activate Week of the Mercenaries, which is probably a safe thing to do. The only thing he could have flipped there that would have been an issue is Gold Pile, and even then he could have drawn a card and simply played the Gold Pile. That's going to allow him to follow up with a Spring Spirit. And once again, Ishima pretty much in control right now. Doesn't have the game on lock per se, but certainly ahead in this race. It's 6 to 14 rather right now. And we see 2 outmaneuver guys in the hand for the Ishima player, as well as a Wanazame, which is pretty big in this situation. The extra damage really, really matters when his opponent's already at 6.
Yeah, so one thing I want to point out here is not only the outmaneuvers, but Ishima's ability to deal 2 damage to something. Obviously, having that Loyal Griffin at 2 health trying to block anything is pretty much an unacceptable blocker. Maz Sparrow is going to know that, so he moves it to a position where he's trying to double block something, but even still, The front creature gets outmaneuvered, and then Ishima's ability takes it out, and damage still comes through to Sandalphon. So only 2 health remaining for Maspero, and I mean it's so hard to actually keep 2 health when you're playing against an Ishima with all the outmaneuvers, the POW, the Wanazames even. It's going to be very tricky for our Haven player to try to withstand this attack now. I think he almost has to play a Lightning Strike on the Spring Spirit, just because an outmaneuver is a guaranteed kill in that lane, because the flying creature can be outmaneuvered anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a way out of this game. Even if he could stall for a turn or two, just inevitably there's going to be outmaneuver creatures for Ashuma. We know that he's already got one in his hand, but even if he didn't, it's just a matter of time until he draws one. And there's really just no good way for Sandalphon to get out of that.
Yeah, he's throwing creatures away in the bottom row just to block now.
Yep. All guys, still including that Wanazame. I mean, granted, he can only play 2 of those guys, but I think that's enough in this situation. Yes, it is. You want to tell us how, Tyrion?
That was actually kinetic. He's going to attack with the Pearl Priestess and the Sayama Champion to open up one of those lane. Then he can just play either of his outmaneuvers to move the Wolf Captain down and attack for the last 2. So once he sees that, he's got the game.
There you have it, gentlemen.
Absolutely. There's even a week of mercenaries he can benefit from, so yeah, it's pretty much over for sure. More than over even, so...
I'm confident 15-20 Ashuma player will figure it out. So assuming that this game does in fact wrap up this turn, which I'm going to assume that it will, we are going to move to a game 2. This is a best 2 out of 3 series, so it is not over for Maspero just yet. Again, we have deck swap rules within the guideline of using the same champion, so whatever 2 they both signed up with, they can tweak those decks as they please. Ishuma is not a deck that can really sideboard super effectively. It does kind of get stuck with what it has now. I don't know if there's any amazing spells that it can bring in. I mean, I guess in theory you could bring in like Strength of the Sea or whatever, but I really don't see that being worthwhile to dilute his deck to that extent. Sandalphon, on the other hand, I don't know if he's got 4 main deck geysers, but he certainly might after game 1. But in the meantime, Maspero does drop game 1. Ashuma's going to take the 1-game lead, and we are going to move on to a second game. Do you think we're going to see more of the same, or do you think that post-board might change things?
You know, I still feel like Sandalphon should have an advantage just right off the bat in that matchup. It's a matter of getting geysers at the right time and being able to get creatures. In particular, I'd like to see Holy Praetorians. Those are creatures that just absolutely disrupt all offensive capabilities of Sanctuary creatures. Sanctuary is such a melee-heavy faction that 1 or 2 Holy Praetorians completely takes out exactly what's happening. But regardless, usually when players have a game like that, go so far in one side, they immediately just think about going to another deck. So
yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, that's assuming they even stay on the same deck, because remember, they both signed up with 2 different heroes, so they might opt for another option. I mean, Ashuma might stick with it because he won, but Cassandra might switch. We'll see what they both opt for. The game is loading now. Maspero is going to... I say Maspero in particular because he didn't win. And yeah, he's going to be the one that switches. He's going to go to Dark Ghazal, whereas his opponent is going to stick with the Ashuma, and I hope that he mulliganed into this hand, because that hand is garbage. Triple gold pile for Plixskin. Absolutely not what he wanted to see. This hand has potential to fizzle out very quickly, and yeah, I'm strongly going to assume there was a mulligan. Unfortunately, on the replay, we don't get to see that, but there's no way in hell that he would have kept a triple gold pile hand, so just an unfortunate mulligan for him. Again, this hand has the potential to fizzle out pretty quickly against a deck like Ghazal that has a lot of sustain. So even though he could potentially draw out of it, that is unfortunately a pretty poor start, and probably not the opening he was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest insult to this mulligan hand is that there was Week of Taxes on the board for his first turn, so he couldn't even pull out his Sayama Stalker on turn 1. But I think right there was the right play, playing a single gold pile only and getting that extra Shark Guard out. But right away, the Sayama Stalker and that first Shark Guard completely useless now. They're taking up 2 slots on the board. And yeah, I actually want to comment on Mez Sparrow's choice to swap decks here. I've always found that Dark Gazal has a very favorable matchup against any creature-based Sanctuary deck like this. So
I agree.
a great choice in the deck swap right there.
Yeah, I like Mez Sparrow's deck choices in general. He picked a good aggressive deck that can do pretty well against most control decks, and then he picked a control-ish deck that beats most creature decks. And additionally, because he can swap as he pleases, he can even play Sandalphon as a lock deck if he wants. So he's got a really versatile champion pool in which he's really able to set himself up to have a good position in a number of matchups.
Yep, and Plixkin right there moving that Sayama Stalker down, I think was probably a mistake. I think he should have moved it into the top row just to prevent a creature from being deployed there, but as it turns out, it doesn't matter since the Rakshasa was moved up to the top anyways. But regardless, blocking damage should not be a priority for him right now, as he just needs to rush down Gazal before Gazal starts playing spells like Puppet Master.
Here we see Plixkin skillfully draw his 4th copy of Gold Pile. So I think
oh man,
he's gonna have a little bit of an issue, not gonna lie. His 7-card hand right now is pretty much a 4-card hand. He's really not doing that well on the board either. So I mean, I don't want to be that guy that prematurely calls a game over, but he's certainly in rough shape. There are ways that Ashuma could steal this game. He does have an outmaneuver guy in hand. He does have Power Deathseeker in hand. Week of Mercenaries could come down at a good time. Those 2 quote-unquote useless creatures in the Stalker and the Shark Guard all of a sudden could deal 1 damage each. So there are ways out of this, but nonetheless, Ashuma, I think, needs to end this game sooner than later. If the game does go long, the crappy gold piles stuck in his hand are going to take effect. And yeah, Gazal's just going to win with better cards.
Yep, and Crippling along with Evade, and eventually we see there's an Enthrall, there's a Void Ripple, Curse of the Netherworld. Spells are things that Ishima does not deal with well. And
that Priestess play, do you see how we just let it die right there just to do 2 damage to the Evade guy? Doesn't seem like a good trade.
Yeah, it's hard to find an answer here. I mean, he kind of wants to get rid of his creatures now that are worthless, but yeah, he can't play his Dune Prowler. He can't play a POW. He's so limited in his choices right now. He should be drawing a card first.
You know what he can play? Triple Gold. Damn right. There is Week of the Mercenaries in play. He does manage to pump up his Shark Guard here, which is certainly helpful since that and the Ambush. Ambush does 2 damage, of course, to the Gargoyle, and that allows the Shark Guard to pick it off with that +1 boost. And the Stalker gets in for a point of damage, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but given the board state, 1 point of damage is absolutely relevant. He needs every point that he can get. He's got that Deathseeker in hand. Yeah, that was a damn good one. That guy is pretty backbreaking, to say the least, against Ashuma. Ashuma really has issues with utility creatures, and that is that's one of the best utility creatures in the game. That was quite a draw. Where do you think he's going to deploy that, and what do you think he's going to target with it?
I mean, he has so many options right now that it doesn't even matter what he does, honestly. All these worthless creatures on the board for Plixkin, they're not going to be able to accomplish anything. He's not able to even kill them off in retaliation that easily. He is going to be able to kill off that Shark Guard now, finally. But
it's interesting how he's opting to spread all the crippling counters around instead of try to stack them all on the same creatures. I think that's fine. I mean, It makes him a little weaker against weaker mercenaries, but it makes his defensive blockers stronger. So it's hard to say. Luckily, Ashuma does have 3 gold piles in his hands, so I'm pretty sure he's got this in the bag. Got the Ghazal player right where he wants him. You see it differently?
No. I mean, obviously some of this has to be tallied up to the bad hand that Plixkin was drawn. And there's a bit of a discussion going on in chat about how Ishima would normally outrush a Ghazal, and maybe it's due to the gold piles that this isn't happening, but there's probably some merit to that.
It's
and,
draw.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you draw is basically determining any matchup, regardless of how advantageous you are. If you draw 4 gold piles in your first 8 cards, you're going to have some issues. But, yeah, I mean, I just don't think there are enough answers for Ishima. It's not a deck that can come back very easily. It's only a deck that can do surprise damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ashuma on the draw, and by on the draw I mean when he's going second, can probably get some draws that come out really, really fast against Ghazal. I'm not a huge fan of Archer the way that Mazpharaoh seems to be, but other than that, he seems to have a lot of creatures that are pretty good early drops that are good defensively against Ashuma. He's got the evade guys. He, of course, has the unseen arrow. We saw Gargoyle earlier. I think that his particular build is, yeah, he's got this evade guy here that we hadn't seen. I think his particular build is pretty well suited against aggro. He's got Curse of the Netherworld as well, which I think is going to come down this turn, and that is absolutely devastating. Completely wipes the board. Insult to Injury plays the evade guy, attacks for 6, and Ashuma has 3 gold piles.
Yeah, still has those gold piles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be that. Maybe for funsies,
he could play his entire hand right now, and then also draw a card.
Yeah, but and add no resources because of taxes and
Blind Arbiters.
Not play anything else because of Blind Arbiters. Yeah, I think that's what I would do at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's got a way out. But in all seriousness, Mazpharaoh did manage to win Game 1 with the Sandalphon deck. No, I'm sorry, Ashuma. Sorry, Ashuma won Game 1 against the Sandalphon deck. So assuming that Ashuma is defeated here, which very much looks like the case, yep, there is the concession, we are going to move to a third game.